So to conclude, we're going to wrap up what we have covered in this last part, where we have seen that the Joseon dynasty in Korea has had a very fixed view of foreigners, particularly of Westerners, and that their relations with the Qing dynasty, with Japan, and their perception of foreigners, it begins to change in the 19th century, and after Japan then opens up Korea, we see a rapid cascade of changes that occurs. So some key takeaways for you to remember from this lecture will be the following. I hope that now you can understand why the Joseon dynasty perceived Westerners as barbaric and uncivilized, and that the reason why they did not want to interact with Westerners was because they honestly behaved very badly. So if we look at the first three interactions with the French, with the Americans, and with Ernst Oppert around 1866, these were all very negative interactions that the Joseon dynasty had with these Westerners. And the Westerners were hostile, they were aggressive, they acted in a very militaristic way, they caused all kinds of death and destruction, and particularly with Ernst Oppert, this only confirmed to the Koreans that Westerners were uncivilized and immoral. I hope that you can also understand now that relations between Joseon and Japan really evolved after the Meiji Restoration in 1868. So because Japan had modernized and they now looked to the Joseon dynasty and saw that it would be a strategic advantage for them to first open up Korea to trade, they needed to revise their foreign relations with the Joseon dynasty. And so as a result of that, we have Japan approaching Joseon in 1875, resulting in the Unyo incident, and then a year later, the forced signing of the Ganghwa Treaty. You should also be able to identify now how foreign relations between Joseon and the Qing shifted and evolved at the same time. So we had an explanation of traditional tributary relations, which was rather hierarchical, but this meant that the Joseon dynasty was recognized as sovereign and the Qing dynasty did not interfere in internal politics. However, this changes after the Ganghwa Treaty, after the Qing dynasty is subject to different kinds of humiliations as a result of increasing Western imperialist presence in China. And so they feel the need to not only strengthen themselves, but also to strengthen their ties with the Joseon dynasty and to bring the Joseon dynasty closer in. And this results in increased interference by Qing dynasty officials in the Joseon dynasty and in internal politics. And so I hope that this lecture has shown to you now how we are beginning to see a shift for the Joseon dynasty from traditional tributary relations with very limited reaction with foreigners. And this is now evolving to a movement towards more modern style diplomatic relations and dramatic increase of interaction with foreigners.
It is 1886, and you are a bureaucrat serving the Joseon court. Westerners are urging that the government should sign a new treaty guaranteeing the freedom of missionaries, saying that they would like to establish a school in Korea. Do you think the ban on the foreign religious mission should be lifted? Why or why not?
So in the late 19th century for the Joseon dynasty, we see this significant turning point in foreign relations for Korea. And although the Joseon dynasty officially had had a policy for many, many years to not engage with the Westerners and to hold Japan at bay and to minimize relations with Japan, this changes after 1876. So the Joseon dynasty is no longer able to ignore the Westerners, and they are forced to engage with Japan on a much increased scale. And even though Westerners had initially confirmed their barbaric nature to the Koreans, they would go on eventually to sign treaties with Western nations beginning in the 1880s. Understanding this, many Westerners knew that the Koreans had a very negative image of themselves. And so once they arrived after these treaties were signed in the 1880s, they worked very hard to rehabilitate their negative image. In the end, Japan successfully opened up Korea and 3 ports to trade: Incheon, Busan, and Wonsan. And this ended up posing a threat to Qing China, because as Qing's strength is starting to wane and they are working on strengthening themselves, they also need to strengthen their relations and alliance with the Joseon dynasty, which leads to increased intervention by Qing officials in Korea's domestic affairs.